because of the terrorist attacks. So I believe all four of these airplanes landed in Cleveland, if that's what it was, Cincinnati or Cleveland, I'll say Cleveland. And you'll notice, Clay, that all four of those airplanes that were hijacked, allegedly hijacked, had only 25% occupancy or less. And that's very strange because airplanes don't fly with 25% occupancy. They fly with 80, 90, maybe even 100%. But by coincidence, all four of them, if all four airplanes landed at the same airport and all of those people were taken off the airplane, I believe they were taken to someplace that, listen, there's a series of hijackings being taken all over the United States, and we're going to wait a little while, and then we're going to fly you out back to New York City or wherever, Washington, D.C., and you'll be able to land and start over again. And I believe all four of those airplanes were unloaded and put into one airplane, because when you take the total number of passengers on board the four airplanes, they can fit into one 767, and that's the plane that took off. And I believe, this is theory, there's no way to know, but I believe it was flown into the Atlantic Ocean, so to take care of all the witnesses. And that's the best I can come up with. I can't prove that, but it sure seems to fit, because there's an employee that works for United Airlines. As I remember, Flight 93 was a United Airlines airplane. I might be wrong on that. It might be American. But any event, this is an employee that works for them, and he gets to fly for free. And so as he flies, he records the airplane number that he was on, just to see what was on this airplane 2 years ago or a year ago, whatever it is. And he claims that he was flying on the airplane that was Flight 93 months later. Now, wait a minute, I don't understand. How can that be? If the plane crashed, how could someone fly on it later? In other words, Flight 93 was not the one that crashed. There was no crash at Shanksville. There's not one person that was there that saw any evidence of a plane crash. Just a hole in the ground and a large gash. And the large gash was there for years. They got satellite pictures of that particular field, and there was a long black gash in the ground, and then there was a hole at one end of it. So they think that they blew up the hole to make people think the airplane landed there, but there was no airplane. So we're being lied to, and the reason we're being lied to is because our government has a policy. If you're going to go to war, we've got to be attacked, as in Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, and the Gulf of Tonkin.
Now, let's go back to 9/11. What was the purpose of this? I know the Project for the New American Century said that they wanted an incident, a Pearl Harbor-like incident, so of course they got it. And, you know, I don't believe, I mean, like you, I mean, I've been accused of being a conspiracy theorist, but man, George Bush kind of makes us look sick, you know. He wants you to believe a bunch of Arabs in a cave in Afghanistan made the U.S. Air Force stand down. They want you to believe a man that died in 2001 is making videos in 2004.
Well, the the BBC reportedly claims that they found 9 of the 19 terrorists alive in that area of where the Arabians lived. So unfortunately, they never put it on a documentary and say, here they are, and have them testify. But they claim that they found 9 of them. Now, if that's true, then the terrorists didn't take. By the way, there's one more story. James Woods, I think his name is, the actor, was on that flight, the one that left from Boston early in the morning, the day before. Now, he said that when he was on board the airplane flying back to Los Angeles to get back in the movie or wherever it was, he saw some people that were acting rather strangely, and he notified the lady, the stewardess, that those people, there's something going on with those people, and so the stewardess reported it to the captain. And by the way, he told this story on Johnny Carson, or at least whatever that show, maybe might have been Jay Leno, but one or the other. He reported the story, sat there and told the story about what happened. So they did question these 4 people, and they were apparently terrorists. At least later on were found out to be terrorists. And there's been pictures released of these terrorists boarding the airplane, but they boarded the airplane the day before. always got picture lists. There they are. They're boarding the airplane right there. But when you check the list, at least years ago, the lists of the people on board the airplane were listed in a I don't know what's the word, manifest or something. You could read it. There's no Arabian name. So Abdul, whatever his name was flying under the name of John Fitzsimmons, I guess, because there were no Arabian names. So how did they get on board the airplane? Well, they didn't, because they were flying the day before.
And how did that passport survive all that heat supposedly intense enough to melt buildings?
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to say this, Clay. The whole thing was fake. The American people have been conned once again for at least the fourth time to get us into war. The war is not being fought over oil. I've got a DVD on my website called $10 a gallon gasoline that explains that we already own Iranian and Iraqi oil and Saudi Arabia's oil on a 50-50 basis. American and European oil companies are in partners with the Iranians and the Iraqis. There's a company called Anglo-Iranian Oil. I think it's been changed now. But the Anglo part is British Petroleum. So British Petroleum and I think one or two other companies own 50% of Iran's oil. So we don't need Iran's oil. We already got it. So and also they're making about an 800 to 1,000% profit, which means it costs them $1 to produce it, and they sell it for $10. That's a 900% profit.
Yeah, they are to dump it and switch over to pharmaceuticals. They're making 7,000% markup in the pharmaceutical industry, Ralph.
Well, here's the point, Clay. We wanted to go to war because wars are very expensive, and they kill people, and that's what they want. Now, the reason they wanted the war is because we have to borrow the money to pay for it. We don't. They can't tax us. No one likes to talk about it taxing us, so they borrow the money from the private reserve. The private reserve loves wars, and that's what this is all about. And the wars will go on and on. There's no way to defeat a guerrilla army. You ever think about that? Normally, wars are fought when a country A marches its troops out with the brightly furnished uniforms, and you say gray, and the other, like in the Civil War, and the other side marches their soldiers out in the blue, and then you know who the enemy is. You don't have to kill farmers and housewives and children. You kill people in uniform. But in a guerrilla army, there is no such thing. The guy that's dressed as a citizen comes out and blows up your tank. That's the kind of war we have. Notice that's what we do, or at least we were doing. We were sending our troops out in these Humvees. For what reason? To provoke an attack. And when they attack, then they fight back. Because there's no way to know who the enemy is.
Now, and we got started going over there looking for somebody we never found, Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan, but why have it turned out that our troops are being used to guard the opium poppy fields those nasty old Taliban were destroying? And oh, maybe it's just a coincidence, but after we invaded and started and doubled the production, or raised production of opium to its highest level ever in Afghanistan, we discovered that they've got billions of dollars worth of valuable metals like gold, silver up in those mountains there. You think that's just a coincidence too, Ralph?
Well, I don't know. I never looked into that, but I'm just saying this, Clay. Wars are expensive. The government loves to borrow money, and that's the way. We didn't have World War I until we created the private reserve in 1913. We entered the war, I think, in 15 or 16. And so we borrowed money. Same thing with Japan. When Japan attacked us and we had to fight Germany and Japan, very, very expensive, we borrowed the money. And I don't know if we're still paying it back. If we created 30-year bonds, they would maybe pay back. But that's what wars are all about. Thomas Jefferson once wrote something like, if we could not do business with the international bankers, it would eliminate 1/2 of the wars of the world. What does he mean by that? International bankers create wars. Why? Because they're profitable.
In my book, Mystery Babylon, I've got a quote by the mother of the Rothschild sons, who said, if my sons didn't want war, there would be none.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to say, Clay, that's what this is all about. And the unfortunate part is that Americans have to die in a war like that. I